Hey, what's up guys? Today is Monday, July 13th. It's 5:23 p.m. and the temperature's a rather nice 23 degrees Celsius. I'm here in downtown Toronto, just north of Queen Street. And this here is Soho Street, which I'm about to turn south onto. And the plan for this walk is to head south, down Soho Street to Queen Street, where I'll cross over and continue on heading south on Peter Street, which will then become Blvd Way. And that'll take me to the SkyDome and CN Tower area. And from there, I'll walk west along, or east rather, along Bremner Blvd over to Union Station. Here's a bit of history I just learned. It looks like this used to be a church that was demolished in 2001 to make way for this residential complex. Just up here on the right is the new location of Mountain Equipment Co-op. It used to be located pretty much directly south of here, a few blocks on King Street. And this building here on the left is the Black Bull Tavern. It might just be the oldest bar in the city of Toronto, built sometime in the early 1800s. It later became the Clifton House Hotel, and then it reverted back to being the Black Bull Tavern at some point in the 70s. They added this outdoor patio, I think in 1981. And the building itself was fully restored in 2012. So they're one of the fortunate businesses in the city that have a large patio, which means they're able to serve customers for dine-in. Here's a better look at the property. So this is Queen Street West here. And that is Peter Street, which I'll be heading down shortly. That used to be a Gap. It closed, I think, about 5 or 6 months ago. They're going to be redeveloping that property and turning it into an office. Queen Street is always one of the busiest retail stretches in the city, at least this part of Queen Street West. So this is now Peter Street I'm heading south on. That's Bar Hop. I think they have another location on King Street, and I've seen another one on the Danforth. They have a pretty large rooftop patio. There's another smaller bar beside it. This area we're entering was sort of ground zero for Toronto's nightlife in the mid-2000s, but most of that has since migrated down to King Street West. This building here is 134 Peter Street. It's built on top of what used to be an old warehouse that dates back to 1915 or so. Those large tube-like metal beams are about 75 feet, if I can remember. It elevates the building on top of the old warehouse location. It's really quite nice inside, but I'm not sure if it's open. And because of the coronavirus, I really don't want to be unnecessarily going inside any buildings. So this is Richmond Street. Down this street used to be Club Central. And this here is a homeless shelter and support center. It was a bar and lounge called Fez Boutique, which was quite popular back in the day, but the City of Toronto took over the property in the late 2000s and somewhat controversially turned it into a homeless center. It wasn't the most popular decision, and in the immediate area, there must have been a half dozen or so bars within a few minutes of this block at least. So a lot of people felt that wasn't a good mix either. All right, let's cross over. This part of the city was known for its textiles or textile factories. It's been dubbed the Fashion District. And if I'm not mistaken, this Burrito Gordito was the original location of the quite popular Burrito Boys franchise. It looks like it's slated for demolition now. There's an quote-unquote independent city market, but really it's just a part of the Loblaws family. Just one of the many developments underway in the city. This next street is Adelaide Street, which is a one-way street which runs to the east. There used to be a lot of bars and clubs just east of here. But what had happened was a lot of condos started popping up in this area. And a lot of the bars started to migrate away as there were a lot of noise complaints and things like that. Why people would move into a neighborhood known for its nightlife and then complain about it is beyond me, but that's what happened. There's a look down towards the financial district. See if I can. And if I'm not mistaken, where we went by, that large construction site, there used to be a club there that was called Level. It later became Mansion, and it went by a few other names, but it's finally been demolished. And this is King Street West, which we are approaching. So just to the left on King Street, you'll find Restaurant Row. And this building here is part of the Hyatt hotel chain. It used to be a Holiday Inn, so they've taken it relatively more upscale. On the corner there used to be where a TV station was located, known as The Score, which later became Sportsnet 360. But now it looks like it's just vacant space. There used to be a comedy club on the other end of this hotel, but that's no longer there. Condos going up everywhere in this neighborhood.
Right, and that's fun. Like that's essentially a lease, not sale. Yeah.
So just down King Street in that direction is sort of the new entertainment district where all the bars and clubs seem to have moved. And we are now on Blue Jays Way. They renamed this part of Peter Street Blue Jays Way back in January of 1993, as in 1992 the Blue Jays had won their first ever World Series versus the Atlanta Braves. And that's Wayne Gretzky's, which will be closing later this year to make room for what else but more condos. This is Mercer Street, and that is the famous Second City. You might know the Second City from their famous Chicago location. Well, they also have a Toronto location. Here it is. It will be moving in November to 1 York Street, which is south down by the lake. So it'll be interesting to see how they transition from this location to being in the base of a shiny new building. Second City is an improv and comedy club. A number of their alumni and people that regularly perform there have gone on to have careers in or at Saturday Night Live and SCTV. And they include, if I can try to remember, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy performed there, Mike Myers, Gilda Radner, and I'm sure countless others that I'm not remembering. But those are the famous ones that stick out. So that ahead off in the distance is the Toronto SkyDome. This is Wellington Street West. I have done a narrated walk down here. And the next street that we are approaching is Front Street. Back in the early 90s, this area was just a sea of parking lots. The Toronto Blue Jays back then used to regularly pull crowds into the 40,000s, often selling out even during the regular season, but it's been a long time since we've had teams that were that consistently good. So you can access the CN Tower from Front Street if you just head east in that direction for a few minutes. These glass towers here are part of the City Place development, which were all built by a Vancouver-based developer, which is why they look very much like a lot of the towers do in Vancouver. That developer sort of brought that trend over to the city of Toronto, for better or for worse. And this is taking us up to the SkyDome, which of course is actually called the Rogers Centre, but I'm not a big fan of that name. It opened up in 1989. It was built for a cost of $500 million, which is peanuts today for a sports facility, but back then it might have been the most expensive one ever built. You can see they've got the roof open. It was the first stadium with a fully retractable roof. Olympic Stadium in Montreal was built with one, but they couldn't quite get it to work properly. And just to the north of the dome are the rail tracks. It's a GO train, which is a commuter rail train that serves the suburbs. Out towards the west there, straight ahead would be Fort York, which is an old military base that was built to defend the city of York, which is what Toronto used to be known as. And there is a hotel that sits in the center field area of the SkyDome. I don't think it's always been a Marriott hotel. when I was growing up, every once in a while, my grandparents used to get a room here out in center field overlooking the field. So even though we all lived not too far and didn't need to stay in a hotel, it was a pretty neat experience for them. And back then, some of the Blue Jays actually lived in the hotel during the summer. In fact, our room was right next door to Juan Guzman, if you can remember who that is. He was a pitcher who lived in the hotel. If you're ever looking for a quiet patio in the city, I guess this would be a good candidate. That's the financial district off in the background. I was actually at the first series of games ever played here back in 1989. And on the third game, it started raining and they had to close the roof, which was a really big deal back then because no one had ever seen anything quite like it before. And a few sections that were sitting around us got wet as there was a leak in the roof. It's hard to forget something like that. It was built to host the Toronto Blue Jays and the Toronto Argonauts, the Canadian Football League team. It's sort of the last of a dying breed of multi-purpose concrete bowl style stadiums. There's a stadium in Baltimore called Camden Yards, which sort of kicked off the current trend of baseball or retro-style baseball stadiums. Stadiums that were built for baseball, not just to accommodate monster truck rallies and whatever else they could get in there. There's a look at the CN Tower. And there's a small park down here. I'm not sure if the CN Tower will be opening as part of the Stage 3 reopening or not. I did talk about it a bit more in a video I did where I walked down Wellington Street and Front Street. Sorry, I don't smoke. Cheers. When there's a baseball game or event going on, this area is usually quite busy. Those towers there make up the South Core district of Toronto, which has earned that name as it's located south of the primary downtown financial core. I can't even remember the last time I went up the CN Tower. Probably sometime at least 15 years ago. I don't really have any reason to go up there, and I don't think it's a place Torontonians really go that often. I've been sort of waiting for someone from out of town to come who wanted to go there, and then I have an excuse to go back, but it hasn't happened. And I used to work in First Canadian Place up well over the 50th floor, and my company had the entire floor to itself, so I used to take people up there to show them a pretty stunning view of the city, and it was free, and it was a bit more unique than what you'd get here, as this is kind of a view that everyone sees. There's, of course, the Edge Walk, which I don't think is happening right now, where you can walk around and dangle off the perimeter of the observation deck. There's Ripley's Aquarium. I can't say I've ever been there. It opened in, I want to say, 2012 or 2013. I see people coming out of it, so it's possible that it's open right now. Probably on some type of limited capacity reservation system. Which is odd, as I learned today that as part of the Stage 3 opening, that amusement parks aren't going to be able to open up, which means Canada's Wonderland is going to sit unused, possibly for the entire season, which is a bit of a shame. So I'm not sure the logic on opening an aquarium but not an amusement park, especially when you can put limits to the crowd size and things like that. There's a look at the dome with the roof open. And this is Bremner Blvd. And straight ahead is Roundhouse Park. Which is an old train roundhouse. There's a museum in there as well. If you're a train buff, it's probably worth checking this area out. This is the rec room. The best way to describe this would be, it's like a Canadian Dave & Buster's, a lot of arcade machines and simulators and that type of thing in there. A bar, of course, if you want to spend $50 in 10 minutes, it's a good place to go. So in the Roundhouse itself, there's the rec room, there's the Steam Whistle Brewery, which has been there since, I want to say 2000. If you do get the chance to visit, they do offer an excellent brewery tour, which I recommend. Steam Whistle is known for its Pilsner, but they've recently added a couple of new beers to their mix. I think one is a pale ale. So the way this roundhouse worked was trains would follow a track into the center area. And then it would spin around and line them up with one of the loading bays. And then the locomotive would drive into the bay, and that's where they would repair it and perform maintenance and things like that. So this big thing here in the middle would spin around. You can see there's still a few bays that are intact straight ahead. And it looks like Steam Whistle has a patio that's open. So that might be a neat place to get a drink. There's a miniature railway, which isn't currently operating. So I'll head back over to Bremner Blvd and continue on east. Just to the south is Queens Quay and Lake Ontario and the waterfront. And there you'll find the waterfront trail, which I've shown in a number of videos before. Those two condos in the middle there are the ICE condos. They're rather well known as being primarily occupied by Airbnbs, so the people that do end up living there are generally unhappy with all the noise and suitcases that come in and out of there. Of course, that business has taken a huge hit since there aren't travelers coming into the city right now, and a lot of those units are showing up for rent at what could be deemed below market rates right now. So hopefully, if the economy ever recovers, they stay as rental units and don't turn back to being Airbnbs.
Yeah, don't worry, you stay here. Stop.
Ooh.
Stop. 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 Sorry, I thought my daughter was going to make it across and we didn't see her.
So this is Lower Simcoe Street. I think that lady made a mistake by crossing the street before her daughter. There's her daughter all by herself. She's much too young to be crossing a busy street like this. Normally before a Blue Jays, Maple Leafs, or Raptors game, these establishments are quite busy, as Scotiabank Arena is just ahead of us and the SkyDome is just behind us. There's even a Hoops Sports Bar and Grill here. I used to go to their location, which was recently torn down at College and Yonge Street. Toronto's not a good city to leave your bike locked up in. At some point, something bad will happen to it. We'll head over to these offices on the other side. That building we just walked by houses Amazon, as well as some really big insurance companies, Marsh McLennan and AIG. And we are approaching Raptors Way. So we've gone down Blue Jays Way, which was named after the 1992 World Series victory. And they did go on to win the 93 World Series. And the Raptors are still somehow currently the reigning NBA champions. And after they won the championship last year, they renamed the last part of, or the last leg of Bremner that runs to the arena, Raptors Way. Apparently they're to resume the season in Florida at some point, but players in the league keep coming down with the virus. And it's been so long since the regular season was being played, it'll be hard to consider this year's champion a true champion. But they're insisting on completing the season, same with the NHL. So I guess that means next year will probably be a shortened season as well. This arena was built in 1999, and it used to be known as the Air Canada Centre or the Hangar. But a few years ago, Scotiabank paid something in the neighborhood of $800 million to get the naming rights. And as much as I don't like names changing, they've done a pretty good job with the exterior of the building. It looks quite neat. On the other side in that building is probably the biggest sports bar in Toronto. Although I don't know why I am forgetting the name of it right now. And this here, if you've seen Toronto playoff basketball or hockey, is known as Jurassic Park, when the Raptors play. It's a reflection of the CN Tower in that building. That's quite neat. But otherwise it's known as Maple Leaf Square, where they put up a large monitor and pack it full of fans. I think it's called Real Sports and Entertainment. The big bar that's located in there, where you'll often find players on the opposing team hanging out during the playoffs, watching games. I know LeBron James had the Cavaliers in there, watching the Western Conference semifinals while they were in town as they're defeating the Raptors a few years ago. And that's Union Station, just to the south of here. I'll just walk around the north side of Scotiabank Arena over to Bay Street, and then I'll head into Union Station. There it is, Real Sports. And in the distance, you can see the SkyDome with the roof open. So one thing you don't see on this side of town too much is too many historic buildings. There are some, which you can find just south of here on Harbor Street, but for the most part it's brand new buildings occupying this area. So it'll be interesting to see how the community develops here over time and how this area ages. This is kind of the ugly side of the arena. That's the Gardner Expressway, which is the main highway that runs along the south edge of the city. It's a bit of an eyesore, and along with the railway tracks, it creates a disconnect between the financial district and the waterfront area. I'll give her a free pass for riding on the sidewalk, even though as an adult you really shouldn't be doing that. And she looked like the type of person who probably knew better than that too, based on her cycling gear. So this is Bay Street we're approaching. You can hang a right here and this will take you right down to the lake. But I'll be turning left and going up to Union Station. Back when they started constructing this arena, it was originally being built by the Toronto Raptors and not the Toronto Maple Leafs. The two teams had separate ownership plans, and the Maple Leafs had plans for their own building, which was to be built above Union Station. I think they were going to call it the new Maple Leaf Gardens. And eventually calmer heads prevailed and realized we don't need two new giant expensive arenas in the city. And the group that owned the Maple Leafs ended up with control of the Raptors. So it's a bit ironic in a city that's known for its hockey team and the iconic Maple Leaf Gardens that their current home for the Maple Leafs started life as a basketball arena, at least on the drawing boards. But like most arenas, it suits basketball and hockey quite equally. It doesn't really seem to favor one over the other in terms of the fan experience. And rather than walk under the noisy underpass, which heads under the railway tracks, I'll head into Union Station. See if I can put my mask on without putting down the camera. There we go. Masks are mandatory in all publicly accessible buildings right now. So from here you could go board your GO train when it's ready. Those are the different platform numbers. With so many businesses still closed and people working from home, it's a lot less busier than you'd normally see it. There's also a bus terminal across the street where you can grab a GO bus. See if this thing works. There we go. Open the door without touching anything. That's quite neat. There's the bus terminal. So this here is Front Street. So from here, I'll head down into the subway station and hop on the northbound train. Although both lines of the subway that run here are northbound. One runs up the Yonge Street side, and the other runs up the University side. Shouldn't be seeing anyone without a mask, although of course there's two people right there without them as soon as I say that. There's some more people over there. And there's a whole lot of people wearing their masks under their chin or below their nose, which is completely useless. So if you're going to go inside, you should at least follow the public health orders. And here's my train, right on time. So, thanks for watching. Leave your comments down below, And I'll catch you on the next one.
Please stand clear of the doors.